Hey guys, this is Rejects. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to part 2 on how to spec your fire tank for DC Universe. Alright, so briefly, what I'll show you guys is when you switch roles, I am now in the tank stance. I'm going to grab a power real quick. Grab immolation here. Now, as I explained before, you get a health buff for having a lot of dominance and for having a lot of health. So it'll take 60% of your health, so you'll want to have as much health as you can get. So once you do a power, it's going to take 60% of that high base health and add more to it, along with the dominance, 2.2 points of health added to your health. So if we look real quick at our stats, okay, I have 3,680 health. My dominance is 274 now. I'll switch back to a DPS stance so that you can see. Now my dominance changes. I still have the health, but my dominance changes to 137. That's because I don't have that 100% boost. So I want to make sure that I basically can get that boost by switching to tank role. So you can't tank in DPS stance. You're not going to pull aggro. You're not going to have enough dominance to pull because once again they're at a higher level, they're not going to be pulled. So if we take and do our one power move that we have right now, immolation, for 10 seconds we're going to have an increase. As you can see now, I have 6,489 health, and again my dominance is doubled again. So I have 3,680 health from doing that for about like 10 seconds or so. And it just went down, as you can notice. So as a tank, you're going to want to look out for your powers. Make sure you keep doing them as often as you can. I would say do them about every 7 seconds or so, maybe even 5 or anything like that. If you have good controllers, you don't have to worry about power, but you want to make sure you keep that buff up because it's very dangerous. Because fire tanking is a little harder than ice tanking. You could kind of hit a lot of shields with ice tanking. You could do a lot of reflect moves that kind of save you, and when you block, your defense is going to be a little stronger. I get a buff for blocking as well. I don't think I could see it though. My defense is supposedly goes up by like 5,000 or so, but of course I can't show you that. You could also check and see if you do have anything current effects recovery. This is actually from my weapon. I get a 15% critical weapon attack damage plus 20% control resistance. But let's do the power again real quick and I'll show you guys. I have immolation active. 10% control resistance, 60 health, self. That's basically the innates of the fire tank. Those will come along with every power you do. So it's not just immolation. As you can see, it's still there. So basically, we're going to go back into speccing because I want to show you guys, well, what happens when you grab all your dominance and health. As you should be grabbing is your dominance and your health. It takes about like 70 skill points or so to get all that. I mean, it's a bit of a debate. You can grab the defense. I grab the defense, of course, but it's not always needed depending on the raid. And again, your gear gives you enough defense, you should be fine. But you do want to get it because everything that helps you survive, especially if you use a lot of groups where you shout out and they're all random people and things like that. You're going to want to make sure you maximize your character into the defense that he needs. So we'll grab the defense. Again, just the 0 out of 3s. So I basically have all my defense. So my defense is a little higher now. See, it's at 2,000 536. So if I do a power now, again, just to show you, my defense doesn't change. If I was an ice tank, it would. But remember, that's why it's not really that important to go for defense right away. You want the health bonus because you want a shitload of health. As you can see, I had 6,000 health before it just ran out. So that's for fire tanking, basically. That's what you want to spec into first and foremost. For a little bit of an advanced specking, I'm going to show you guys what I kind of spec into. Now, as a fire tank, you basically excel by healing yourself. That's what a fire tank can do. That's what no other tank really can do as good, is healing themselves. So you want to make sure you can get your criticals. You want to basically spec into partly a healer. And this takes a lot of skill points to do, which is why it's important to do your feats and make sure you get a lot of skill points so that you can do this and be a very good self-sufficient kind of tank, especially if you're pugging. Because if you have a crappy healer, you could kind of heal yourself and kind of help yourself survive longer. So it doesn't make you look as bad or so. So there's a 4%, if you read this, critical healing magnitude. Permanently increase statistics, boost critical healing magnitude by 4% per point. So that's pretty good, 4% per point, right? Let's read one of the other ones. That's another 4% one. I'm looking for one of the other ones. Okay. Critical healing chance. Permanently increase statistics, boost critical healing chance by 1% per point. Now, that sounds a bit odd. Why would I grab the 1%? I would want to grab the 4%, right? Not really. You don't want to grab the 4% because if we read a little carefully here, you're going to see critical healing chance, meaning it's every chance you have. The chance of you getting a critical or a critical healing, critical anything, 1% is boosting that critical chance rate. Now, let's read this just in case if you guys aren't kind of getting it. Critical healing magnitude. Now, if we look up the word magnitude, it's kind of like the strength of it. Permanently increases statistics, boosts critical healing magnitude, meaning that's the amount that your critical is going to hit you for by 4%. It's going to raise the number of your critical by 4%. It's not going to raise how many times you get a critical. It's only going to raise that number. So if you're in a raid, right, and you crit yourself, let's say you don't have any of these, and you decide to spec into just one. Now, that means if you spec into only the 4%, what's going to end up happening is when you do get a critical heal, it's going to be a pretty big number. It's going to be a strong number. However, you're not going to get as many criticals during that raid. So if you're in there for about 30 minutes, you're probably only going to get about, let's just say, for example, 5 crits. Now, those 5 crits are going to be amazing, but what's to say you're going to get a critical when you really need it? And that's the point. You want to raise as many times as you can get a critical versus the amount of what that critical number is going to be. That's why we're going to go for the 1%, because we want to raise our chance. We're going to basically grab the 1% first, because those are more important. That means when I heal myself, when the healer heals me, I'm going to get a critical more times than normal. Okay, so now that means that when I do get healed from now on, I'm going to have a lot of critical heals. Meaning when I heal myself, you're going to see critical healed for this number. So it's always going to raise the number when you get a critical. It's always going to be higher than what you would normally get from the healer or from yourself. But now you want to raise that number. Now you want that number to be stronger. So that means you're going to get also critically healed a lot of the times. But by speccing into this 4%, you're going to get bigger numbers. So 4% is the last thing you want to get. 1% is always going to be stronger than the 4%. Because it's two different kind of percentages. It doesn't mean the same thing. A lot of people get that kind of confused. They kind of think, well, 4% is more, so I'm grabbing the 4%. And then they don't really get healed as often or as good by the healers as they would have if they had the 1%. Alright, so we basically have everything there. That's pretty good. If you're advanced and such, you're gonna basically have yourself you're gonna have yourself pretty good as a tank right here, because you have your defense, you have your dominance, and you have your critical heals. So what do you get now? Now, another debate is, people always ask me, why do I not spec into Resto? I can heal myself. And Restoration, what it does is it basically permanently increases your restoration by 15 per point. Let's read what Restoration does. Now, Restoration increases healing. 4 restoration equals 1% base healing increase. Now, for every 4 points, I get a 1% in healing. Now, it's okay. It's good to get. A lot of people, I mean, if you feel it works for you, you can get it. Personally, I don't, because Restoration works on you healing yourself. That doesn't mean when the healer heals me, I'm getting more out of it. It just means when I heal myself, I'm going to get more heals out of it. Which is not something you want to do, because as a tank, you're going to be blocking a lot. And the only time you want to unblock is when you could activate a power to keep your health buff. You want to keep your health at 6,489, remember. So you're going to keep activating your powers, and if you're in the middle of a fight, you're going to not want to take as much damage from the enemy that you're fighting, from the bosses especially, because you'll be hit by spike damage a lot if you do unblock. If you don't block, you're going to basically get yourself killed. Because fire tanks are a little squishier, they're a little harder to play. They basically, they rely on their health being high. So you don't want to give the boss a reason to lower your health more than it should be. So you want to raise your health, you want to block, you want to keep your aggro, you want to heal yourself when you can. But not so much as healing yourself. What you're going to be using the powers that do heal you with are to keep aggro and to keep immunities. Which I'll explain later on in another video, in the powers video. So basically, you're going to want to keep hitting your powers and holding block. If you raise your restoration and you rely on those other powers to heal yourself rather than the healer, you're going to leave yourself wide open, because you're not blocking, you're not holding R1. If you're hitting powers, you can't, see, I can't hit a power while I'm blocking, and I can't cut the animation to go into a block. Now, this right here is a pretty big opening to get killed, especially if the bosses are hitting you really hard. So you want to make sure you don't leave yourself open, which is why I don't spec into Restoration. Restoration means that you're going to want to heal yourself, which is good, but I mean, if you're in a league, if you're with good healers, there's no point in going for Restoration, because you should rely on your healers to heal yourself. And Restoration also helps with shields. Fire tanks don't have shields, so they strengthen shields and such, and they heal. Restoration helps you get yourself healed, which is something that doesn't work for fire tanks, not as well. And again, maybe if you were in a lower raid and you're so advanced and your gear is so high and you have enough restoration, you could heal yourself, whereas the healers aren't really needed. But of course, you know, you're always going to need healers, and that's probably going to be a very long time from now. So you don't spec into Restoration. There's no point in doing it, because again, by the time you activate a power, let's say this heals me for about like 1,000 points of damage. Now, I unblocked to heal myself back to 6,400, but let's say that boss hits me for 3,000. What was the point in doing this when I could have just held block and the healer could have healed me, and I still would have taken only about 100 points of damage from the boss itself? That's why you don't want to spec into Restoration. Keep yourself blocking. There's no point in healing yourself on a big raid boss or so. Healers are there for a reason. It's their job. Let them do it. Let them handle it. They'll take care of you. So pretty much, that's what you spec into. I'll do an advanced kind of spec for different roles, but currently that's all you need. What would you go for, though, if you wanted to, if you had enough skill points to do it? Again, I'm not really touching these bottom trees because they're not that useful. I mean, you can get them if you want. Personally, I'm going to wait once I get a lot more skill points and once there's more feats to get for me to spec into these. But I like my old spec because it keeps me alive much easier, rather than the couple extra points of health that I'm going to have to waste a lot more skill points to get. Another good thing to get is Cunning. Cunning for a fire tank. Cunning for a tank is a little bit silly if you think about it. Permanently increases statistics, boosts critical power chance by 1%, and stealth by 1 per point. Now, why would a tank want to have stealth? Now, it's not really about the stealth. It's more about what you can do with the extra power. That's what you want. Remember, your critical healing chance is at 1%. That's what the Cunning does for you. The Cunning raises how much power you get back. How many times you get a critical power from a controller. Meaning, if they hit you for about 160 power, it'll critical more often. So it won't be a 160 power. It'll be a 200 power, 200 power again, 200 power. Which is very useful, especially if you're in a raid and you kind of don't want to waste too much power. You want to conserve power. Tanks taunt enemies. Their powers pull them. They will never be affected by the stealth. As long as you're doing your job, you're never going to be affected by the stealth. The stealth is you're going to do a pull move, they're going to come to you and they're going to look at you, because that's what you do. You taunt them, you get an aggro table, which I'm going to have to explain in the power video more so than the spec video. So this part I kind of left for last purposefully, because a lot of people forget this. When you spec, the first thing you want to spec into is your supersonic, your super speed movement. Try to remember that, guys, because I know a lot of times when I used to basically, when I used to respec, I used to actually have trouble because I'd spec into my innates first and then I'd come to the supersonic and not have any skill points, and I'd be like, shit, I gotta do that over. Because you don't want to fly around like this throughout the entire raid. You want to fly like that. So make sure you pick that up. Another thing you want to get, there's a pull move here, which is good for tanks as well, but again, that's more in the power loadout than anything. You're going to go into, we'll grab it for the sake of it, just to show you guys. This is what you want. Your stun resistant and your restraint resistant. Permanently increases statistics, adds 10% encase and root resistance, meaning enemies won't encase you. Your stuns, they won't stun you. The bosses won't stun you as often. So these are very good to get, especially as a tank. You don't want to get stunned. You get stunned by an enemy, that means the other enemies will be kind of like rampant, and it'll be harder for you to pull aggro because you have to run around and kind of grab everything again. Stun recovery and restraint recovery, meaning if you ever do get stunned, you tap the shit out of R1 and you grab your, you get power back from it, basically. Because what you're going to do from it is you're going to get stunned at times. There's no way to kind of like put that off. You're always going to get stunned. But the good thing about these here is that they give you something back for breaking out of them. So you break out of them and you get some power back, which is useful because you do lose power when you do get stunned and you try to break out of it. When you break out of it, you lose a nice bit of chunk of power. Breakout Mastery allows you to recover 75 power over 10 seconds when you use Breakout, in addition to any other movement recovery effect, meaning you get more power back and such for doing this. So you want to grab this. So make sure you have your movement. Make sure you have these down here. Every tree has these 5 here. Very useful to have, and they all have their own super speed movement. So keep that in mind, guys. I do have 30 skill points left over. I could put them wherever the hell I want if I wanted to. But that's just to basically show you guys what I spec into. So remember, a little recap. You're going to go for dominance. You're going to go for health. You're going to go for defense. Then you're going to go for your critical 1%. 1%. Then your 4%. And that's pretty much it, guys. So if you guys had a good learning experience, whether you're new or not new. Maybe you didn't know something, because again, we're all learning still how to like reinvent everything. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys subscribe or share this video with people. It helps. I don't mind helping you guys. If you ever need any help with certain things, I'll try to make a guide for it, and you guys let me know. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this guide helps you with speccing your tank.